A Borderlands zone has been a classic aspect of Dungeons & Dragons, as well as many adventuring games and stories. This video shares a few of my ideas about preparing a Borderlands setting in Dungeons & Dragons, building on the classic B2 module of the Keep on the Borderlands. This adventuring module introduced countless people into Dungeons & Dragons, and it inspired many new homebrew variations and entire campaigns and world-building settings. The core themes and concepts have endured through the decades and new editions of Dungeons & Dragons, and soon an official update will become part of the next starter set for Dungeons & Dragons in the year 2025. Part of the appeal of the Keep on the Borderlands is the direct link with themes of exploration and adventure. On one side of the border, the characters are in familiar territory, and they know that they can be reasonably safe during most of the time. When moving into the Borderlands, the characters move into danger, usually by their own choice for whatever reasons or motivations. The Keep, or the home base, can provide a practical place to rest or to resupply, to learn information about new plot hooks, or to engage with the various people and groups who live here or who pass through the area. Some entire adventures could occur just within the Keep. Most adventures, at one point or another, will involve exiting the safe zone and moving into the potentially dangerous Borderlands. This aspect resonates with folklore and fairy tales about people moving from their safe home areas and into a dangerous forest with witches, hungry wolves, and other threats. Related to the theme of Borderlands, many sci-fi stories and settings involve exploration into deep space or encountering strange worlds and creatures. In most of the iterations of Star Trek, the characters live in a home base of their ship that travels through the potentially dangerous areas. In Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the home base is a deep space station situated at a juncture of borders or border zones. More directly within a medieval fantasy setting, the television show The Outpost reminds me of a larger scale version of the Keep on the Borderlands. Especially during Season 1, The Outpost involved several aspects that would fit perfectly in a Dungeons & Dragons setting or campaign situated at a Borderlands region. Any Borderlands region inherently enhances the exploration pillar of a game or story, directly tied to the opportunities for adventure. The exploration context essentially sets the stage for the other two pillars of social interaction and combat. This approach, or formula, is what makes a Borderlands setting so effective in many sci-fi and fantasy stories, allowing for diverse episodes within a larger ongoing narrative. These same strengths contributed to the success of the classic module The Keep on the Borderlands, and you can adapt any or all of these ideas into your games. Whenever I design a Borderlands adventure, then I start with what the environment looks like, who might live here, and who might pass through the area from different sides of the border zone. In my latest homebrew campaign setting, the regional scale map includes several places that could be converted into a Borderlands adventure. For instance, the area called the Sunken Desert is a place where people go to be left alone or to live apart from the outside world. Recently, though, a small group established an outpost about one day's travel outside the desert, primarily as a provisioning station for adventurers and explorers. The outpost here shares many of its narrative themes with the famous Keep on the Borderlands. Characters can meet with people, explore the locations, and experience varieties of encounters that might feel familiar for anyone who knows the Keep on the Borderlands. A few other aspects were inspired by a combination of pre-existing sci-fi and fantasy stories. The appearance and physical design of the outpost were made uniquely for this particular setting. Within the Sunken Desert, characters can go through diverse adventures depending on what makes sense for their decisions and motivations. As with the classic module of the Keep on the Borderlands, this setting in the Sunken Desert provides an open sandbox-like framework. In my design, the desert includes several zones, I can be flexible about managing the encounters within each zone generally, without fixing everything specifically into a particular point in the map. The characters could decide to go to any zone, and then each zone could open the opportunity for a different adventure. The details will depend on what the characters will decide as their quest or purpose. Within this framework, I can be prepared to adjust with whatever the characters will decide to do. I can rely on random tables to generate some but not all of the details. I tend to modify the tables into the kind of content that seems more reasonable for my purposes. I find helpful guidance and inspiration in the random tables of games outside Dungeons & Dragons, such as in the game 5 Leagues from the Borderlands. As you might expect, this game resonates with the themes of Borderlands Adventures. Random tables provide possible ideas and content for almost any situation. Personally, I enjoyed the classic B2 adventure module of the Keep on the Borderlands, mostly because of the adventuring themes and the nature of the adventuring structure. The original prepared maps and encounters were effective. However, even back in the 1980s, I modified the content into my own versions, and many other people did the same, as was expected at the time. I like to work with aspects of Borderlands Adventures. I often draw on some of the parts of the Keep on the Borderlands, but overall I prefer to create unique adventures that will make sense in my choice of a campaign setting. I was happy to learn that the next 2025 Dungeons & Dragons starter set will involve an updated version of the Keep on the Borderlands. I am hopeful about continuing the tradition of inspiring people to play the game and to develop their own creative adventures and campaign settings. What are your thoughts about the Keep on the Borderlands, and generally about Borderlands Adventures in Dungeons & Dragons? As always, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.